Hello, today we are going to be painting or drawing our background of our still life. So before you get into the background, it's really important to double check that you have details, tints and shades, and especially when I say tints and shades, your darker and lighter values. So while your work is still dry, we do want to check if we have any lighter values that need to be added, like tints, or darker values that need to be added with either the oil pastel or the color pencil or the paint. So I'm going to make sure that I have my darker values with my black brush here because, again, I started with a wash there or a lighter version of that black color, but I'm going to go in now with another layer. That's how watercolor works best, is to work in two different layers. And then I'm going to double check that my shades are good and even darken up some of these edges of these paints. And then I'm going to now add some detail in my background. Now, once you're feeling ready for being finished with your work, and again, you want to double check that all your edges were complete. And with my watercolor tray, I kind of want to make sure that there's some splotches of watercolor hanging off. Even if they're not in the real thing, it's just going to make it look more realistic. So I'm going to add some blotches of the paint falling off around the watercolor tray. The one that I was looking at was newer, but I want to make it look like it's been used. All right. So now that we have all of our details done, we can look into our background. So I would recommend using fine line pen Sharpie or your color pencils to add either wallpaper detail first and some type of pattern if you wanted to do a wallpaper. And then you want to also think about your color scheme. So I want to use a color that's very different. So if I use blue and I paint the background blue, it's going to be the same color as two of my details. So blue might not be the best option for me. I might want to go with a yellow here. Yellow and green haven't been used that much. So I'm going to get yellow and green and I'm going to start some background details. If you want to grab a ruler out, you can use a ruler to add stripes for like a wallpaper design. It doesn't have to be stripes. I just prefer stripes. And we are going to go in. I'm going to add some stripes in this background because I do want to go with that for my wallpaper design. First, I'll just start with a ruler apart for each one. And maybe I add something in between those lines. You do not have to do a wallpaper. If you want to pick just one base color, that's fine. However, that is going to need to be a color that has some type of contrast. Now, I could draw in my background design and just leave it as a drawing too. So if I just want to do some details and say this is my wallpaper design, which looks a little bit too spaced out, then I can just start some stripes and then use that as my design. Your wallpaper could be flowers. It could be a different type of line pattern. It could be dots. It could be plants. It could be a wallpaper design that you create. Just make sure that it's different than the colors happening in the front. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting with a really light color. Then I might eventually go darker. I do like how the white looks, but I'm just going to go really light with a light yellow. So I'm going to start painting here. Oh, that's very bright. I use more water on my brush to make the color lighter. Whoops. Take your time. Don't be like me and rush. All right, so I'm going to paint in this background. Just paint in this. And I think that I actually want to go in with a detail in my stripes. Like I want them to be different colors. So I'm actually going to paint one of my stripes green. See how that goes. So take your time, decide on your pattern that you want to use in your background. It doesn't have to be stripes. It could be dots. It could be some sort of other detail, but make sure it's consistent because wallpapers are printed like from a computer. So whatever they are is going to be very consistently done. So I have to kind of clean up this edge over here where it bled out and try to make sure that looks a little bit more straight because we want this pattern to look like it was printed off of a computer. And this is what we're going to go with for now. I'm going to let it dry and maybe add another line detail in my background pattern. But you can see that the wallpaper color is different than everything else. And I can even add an extra shade or shadow to my brush here so that that is standing out against the wall because it was blending in a little bit. Same thing with my brush. I can add a darker value on the edges, I should say, so that we have some differentiation between background and foreground. Same thing down here on my palette. So it's not like a black outline, it's like a black shadow that just determines the edges of where things are and will help to create some contrast. So those darker areas in the end are really, really important. I can even add a little bit of darkness over here and under here, like a shadow coming off. All right. So have a great art class, and I will see you next time. Paint your background. Enjoy.